Hello and welcome back to Anthropology 201 World Cultures. This is Lecture Series 2, Part 2. Today we will be looking at the 9 parts of culture that we will be using to explore different cultures from around the world. And then we will look at the Hoansi and see if we can't identify those 9 parts in their culture. Spoilers, we can. Now, all cultures have certain parts or systems. For example, every culture has technology, economy, kinship, and so on. So, we are going to list and describe each of these parts of culture and then look at specific cultures and identify their parts of culture. Now, the parts that we are going to cover are language, subsistence pattern, economy, social stratification, family and kinship patterns, this also includes marriage, technology, political organization, settlement patterns, and ideology. Now, ideology includes, the religion, their beliefs, their values, their attitudes, their art, their folklore, stuff like that. So, first up is language. Now, perhaps the most distinctive feature of being human is our capacity to create and use language and other symbolic forms of communication. So, a culture's language not only involves the verbal form of communication, but also written and gestural forms of communication, such as sign language. Next is subsistence pattern. This part of culture involves the procurement of food. What are they? Are they farmers, foragers, pastoralists? And also, what do they eat specifically? Do they primarily subside on vegetables, nuts, fish? What specifically does that population eat? Next is economy. And if you remember from part 1, economy is a pretty big subject. Now, all human societies have economic systems within which goods and services are produced, distributed, and consumed. Well, how are those goods produced? Are they hunting and gathering? Are they horticulture, pastoralism, agriculture? How are those goods produced? And also, how does that society distribute those goods? Do they use reciprocity? Is there a redistribution system set in place? Or do they have a market exchange? Next is social stratification. Social, meaning society, and strata, meaning layers. So, how is society divided and layered? Is there achieved status in this society? Is there a scribe status? Is there both? Is there a class system in place? Upper, middle, lower class? Or is there a caste system? C-A-S-T-E. Is there a caste system? Next is family and kinship patterns. Now, this aspect of culture, you could have an entire course on kinship patterns. And if you could find one, I highly recommend it. It is a very fascinating subject. Now, the family and kinship patterns. So this would include how are families structured. This part of culture involves looking at how many spouses do they have at any given time, marriage economics such as bride wealth, bride service, dowries. This part also looks at kinship patterns. What are their descent patterns? Are they unilineal or multilineal? Are they matrilineal, patrilineal, ambilineal, or are they bilateral? Also, which of the 6 kinship systems do they follow? Hawaiian, Eskimo, Iroquois, Omaha, Crow, or do they follow Sudanese? Technology is next. Now, technology is pretty straightforward. Technology encompasses all of the objects of the culture that they have, that they use, and that they can make. Now, the category of technology, it not only involves those tangible objects, the specific things, but also the knowledge on how to make it as well. So after technology, we have political organization. Now, political organization refers to the way in which power is distributed within a society so as to control people's behavior and maintain social order. You should remember this from part 1. Now, there are 4 main types of political systems. You got the band, tribes, chiefdoms, and states. Next is settlement patterns. This involves 2 major aspects. First, what types of structures do they utilize? Do they utilize natural structures, manufactured structures, both? Now, do they have permanent encampments or are they temporary? And second, the second major aspect is how are those structures distributed across the land? Do they have cities? Do they have towns? Do they have villages? Do they have seasonal camps or areas throughout the territory that they utilize depending on time of year? And the last part of culture, and probably the biggest aspect of the human part of culture, is their ideology. This is their beliefs. Religion, values, art and folklore often fall here, and all things of that nature. So, this is just a very, very brief overview of these parts of culture, and we're going to dive in a bit deeper as we go throughout this course. Now, these 9 parts of culture are the parts that you will address during your research projects. So for more details on this, see your syllabus. However, after the first exam, I will be discussing the research project a bit more in detail. So, let's apply these parts of culture to the Hoansi. Now, the Hoansi, so the San are a hunting and gathering people living in southern Africa. The San are varied people in terms of both looks and language, and include people living in Angola, Botswana, Zambia, and Namibia. Sorry about that. Namibia. So, in pre-colonial times, the San population was estimated at up to 300,000. However, after the arrival of the Dutch in the mid-1650s, this resulted in the near decimation of the San people. The systematic genocide of the San by the Dutch led many to fear for their survival as a people. Now, the group that has been studied most extensively is the Hoansi of the Dobe area. Now, the Hoansi were formerly referred to as the Kung, but the Hoansi is their preferred referent and is now widely used in accordance with their wishes. The term San is a broader appellation used to describe a group of foraging peoples living in southern Africa and share language features. So, first up of our 9 parts of culture is language. The Hoansi speak a click language, and they have 4 distinct clicks: the dental click, the alveolar click, the alveopalatal click, and the lateral click. Now, I've attempted to learn these clicks, but language is not my forte, so it's hard for me, so I'm not going to attempt these. But please, there are loads of other YouTube videos that give examples to this click and to these clicks, and it is a very fascinating language. Please take the time to investigate those. Now, the Kung language, commonly called Ju, is one of the larger click languages and belongs to the Khoisan language group, Khoisan language group. Now, the Kung language actually consists of about 3 different languages, whereas the Juhon is the most popular and the only to have a written aspect to the language. So, next up on our list is subsistence pattern. Now, plant foods are plentiful and nutritious and make up the majority of their diet. Women have an intricate and complex knowledge of their plant environment, distinguishing more than 100 varieties of edible plants from those that are poisonous or otherwise undesirable. Now, most important in their diet is the mungongo, a protein-rich nut found abundantly on trees near every watering hole. Even though hunting provides a minor portion of the Hoansi diet, roughly 30%, meat is nonetheless a valuable commodity. Meat provides more than just protein. It also provides social opportunity. Now, the killing of a large animal is followed by a commensurately large feast enjoyed by all. Now, the distribution of cooked meat is a difficult affair. It has to be portioned and distributed until everyone receives the amount deemed satisfactory. Some of the animals that they hunt are hare, guinea fowl, and antelope, but they also are known to take down larger animals. Next on our list is economy. The Hoansi are a hunting and gathering society that are egalitarian and share with each other amongst their band. Next on the list is social stratification. Now, despite the Hoansi's appreciation for meat, displays of enthusiasm for a successful hunt, and by default successful hunter, they're tempered by the importance of maintaining egalitarianism. Now, we've been using that word a lot in this lecture series. So, now, egalitarianism is a type of society in which no individual or group has more privileged access to resources, power, or prestige than any other. So even though some men are better hunters than others, their behavior is molded by the group to minimize the tendency towards self-praise and to channel their energies into socially beneficial activities. As a result, the existence of differences in hunting prowess does not lead to a system of big men, in which few talented individuals tower over the others in terms of prestige. Next on our list is family and kinship patterns. Now, the flexibility of the Juhan living arrangement is the key to its success. The band is, at its base, a unit of sharing, which demands peace and cooperation among its members. It must also be balanced in terms of numbers of productive adults who can provide food and labor, and young, dependent members who cannot. Thus, the composition of the group will change as patients wear thin, and it will also shift as the number of children becomes too large to support or too small to ensure a future. Now, one unique feature of the system is that the relationships forged by special naming practices. There are very few names found among the Hoansi because children are supposed to be given names of their ancestors. For example, a woman married to a man with a particular name calls any man with that name husband. So, if you married a man named Jeff, every other male in your band called Jeff is now referred to as husband. If your mother's name is the same name as another person's mother, you and that person are siblings because you are the children of the same mother because of their name. Now, traditionally, marriages are arranged for children by their parents, who begin to contemplate the children's marriage partners as soon as their babies are born. Now, Juhan marriages sometimes have a bit of a stormy beginning, presumably due to the tradition of marriage by capture ceremony, in which the bride is forcibly removed from her hut and presented to her groom. Now, the marriage by capture ceremony is a very fascinating facet, and I would highly recommend further investigation into this practice. It's very, very fascinating. Next on our list is technology. Now, technology, they use digging sticks, bows and arrows and spears, knives, and ropes are, most reliable for hunting. The animals that they hunt do not have to be out in the open because they have another tool that allows the Hoansi to pursue them into their burrows. Now, this is a special tool equipped with a hooked end specifically for this purpose. Some of the older hunters with less agility utilize snares. So next on our list is political organization. Now, bands are the traditional form of Juhan organization. They usually contain between 10 and 30 members who live and move together for the majority of the year. Although membership is flexible, it is not random. Individuals are kin to one another, and it is a core of related elders around whom the band is centered. These older central group members are generally thought of as the people whom the resources quote-unquote belong. However, the role of the elder is more one of a guardian or host of the land, rather than one of formal ownership. So, that begs the question, who is responsible for seeing that permission to hunt and gather in a territory is requested and granted, and the balance of territorial use maintained? Who disputes, or who settles all these disputes? And what do they do when access is denied? Where does all of this responsibility fall on? Well, early accounts of the Hoansi suggested that there was, in fact, a familiar role of headman or big man among the Hoansi. This, in fact, is not the case. Although individuals in each group do emerge in leadership positions, these are informal and based not on an inherited right such as status, but rather owing to a modest demeanor, interpersonal skills, and successful handling of past conflicts. So basically, if you were good at a thing, people will come to you in the future to be good at that thing again. Next is settlement patterns. A Juhon encampment consists of grass huts arranged roughly in a circle constructed around an area of clearing in the center. Because mobility is hallmark of the Juhon life, these huts are constructed quickly and rarely used for more than a few months at a time. Now, these camps, like I said previously, are located near watering holes, about 12 hours walk both ways. Now, the houses themselves reflect the season in which they are built. So, during the dry season, sites are located near dependable water sources. Huts built for use during the rainy season are constructed with thickly thatched roofs to provide shelter from the rains. And during times of the year with less extreme weather, camp is often set up without building or shelter of any kind. A fire may be built and they'll just sleep on the ground and move on the next day. Which brings us to our last part of culture, ideology. Now, like I said previously, ideology involves their religion and also their values and ideas. And part of values and ideas are, their folklore, their art. And with that comes storytelling. So, the Hoansi are very big into storytelling. People engage in conversation all day long and well into the night. They talk as they work, as they eat, as they gather around the fires with their children at night, and as they visit other families. Often people who have hunted or gathered separately during the days will recount, what they did throughout the day. Now, also, songs will pepper the conversation and can be used as a disciplinary measure or to head off conflict by warning an individual to correct inappropriate behavior. So they compose songs specifically for this purpose. If they're conversing with somebody and somebody does something that they don't like, they'll just walk to the edge of the camp at night and sing this little song of their disapproval. Now, throughout the San in total, not just the Hoansi, there is a rich tradition of storytelling. Now, the Hoansi, they have no single explanation for the origin of life on Earth. They tell stories about a time in the beginning of the world when people and animals were the same and all lived in one village under the guidance of an elephant, sometimes thought of as the higher god. Many of their stories about their lesser god portray him as a trickster, someone who is a practical joker of grand proportion, always leading people astray and causing trouble in the village. Now, they have also devised ways to explain and understand these circumstances, these troubling times when times are hard. And as in often the case, their explanations transcend to the forces of nature. It is the ancestral ghosts, the Gongwashi, who are responsible for most of the illnesses and other misfortunes that befall their living kin. Gongwashi wait near the villages and send their destruction. Now, it may seem a bit surprising that a people who in life live harmoniously together would attribute such evil intent to their loved ones once dead. Well, the Jew Hoansi explained this by saying that it is death that turns people bad. So, all living people are good. Alright, so this concludes Lecture Series 2, and as always, let's try and make better mistakes tomorrow.